Hello, I'm Luke Darcy. Welcome to Access All Areas. Some interesting results were thrown up in round 5, and with me to once again dissect all the big footy issues from the weekend is Damien Barrett. Hello, Damo.
Hey, Das. I'm loving this Port Adelaide re-emergence. The swagger's back, isn't it? It's almost officially back as part of the AFL.
It is fantastic, Damo. First time in their history they've got to round 5 undefeated. Biggest ever come-from-behind victory of 41 points. And maybe even more exciting is a record 38,000 members. They surpassed their title in 1998. Now, there are a lot of factors, but let's not overlook one of them. We're seeing some great play here with their improvement from players that maybe thought were stagnating.
And just the last quarter goals here against West Coast in a match that looked to be heading the other way.
Do you want to apologise to the President, David Koch, Damo? You were one of... there it is, there's Kochie with Ken Hinkley. That was fantastic. Kochie has had a massive impact on this club. Membership's up. He's delivered sponsorship. He's reunited the fan base over there. Do you want to just maybe a little one down the barrel and say, I'm sorry?
Why would I need to apologise?
Because you were one of an outspoken minority. You were very negative. You said it was a gimmick and you thought that him as president was not going to work.
You've actually got me. I do need to apologise to David Koch. I was very critical of his appointment, and I think I'm wrong, Das.
Probably apologise to me later on, Damo, as well. I would have thought. Absolutely. Hey, let's have a look at the Power. Are they the real deal, Damo?
Well, no, I think it's what we need to look at, Das. No, they're not yet, and we can't say they're not, because look at rounds 3 and rounds 5. On last year's form, they're the scalps they've got, Adelaide and West Coast, but we can't look at those two clubs on last year's form either. So you actually throw them into the mix now, add them to Gold Coast, GWS and Melbourne. We don't know where they're at. I know it's 5-0, and that's a magnificent start to the year, but we just don't know if they're any good at all. I mean, do you see it the same way?
Oh, look, you can argue the other way and say they've beaten Adelaide and West Coast, who were genuine to top 4 sides last year. Look, you can only go on current side. They're not. So, yeah, look, they've had a pretty soft start for the year. But I had them winning about 4 games for the year, Port Adelaide, let alone starting 5 zip. And I'm excited for them that they've got a supporter base back. And, 12 months ago we thought they were a disaster, and now you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. West Coast have one of the sides that they beat, and they beat last weekend. Are they still within reach of the top 4, Damo, in your mind?
No, because they've only got about 3 matches up their sleeves in what they can lose from here to the end of the season in order to make a top 4 dust. They're not going to. They've beaten Melbourne and Melbourne only. And if you recall that match, that was in round 3. They were struggling halfway through the second quarter against Melbourne on that particular occasion. They've lost the other 4 games. I know they've played some good opponents. I mean, Fremantle, Carlton was one of them when Carlton started to get a bit of a roll. But no, they're not top 4, Das.
I had them making the grand final. I've got some doubts now. And the injury list is a big concern with Nat Nui yet to play. I believe he's coming back in a couple of weeks. Sharrod Wellingham, you'd love to see him out there amongst a few others. Richmond, another 1-point loss on Friday night. And against Fremantle over there. And I want to just walk you through, Damo, where it went wrong, because I was sitting at home on the couch watching this, and you were just looking at this big gap there right in front of their goal. With
just look at that hole they've created there. It's just how can that happen in a game?
You just got to get numbers back, and good sides do it. They allowed the third man up they needed to block and get defenders goal side of the contest. And it was almost screaming on the couch saying, if this was the Sydney Swans playing, they just jam this up. Their half forwards push all the way back. They get some space in that hole, and guess who gets on the end of it? Ballantyne. You never, ever should have allowed that space there at such a crucial stage in the game. You can see Dan Jackson, you can see the reaction from Koch, and it was
this is not one off to us. This is example number 8, if you include the 7 occasions last year where they've lost matches they should have arguably either winning or a lot closer.
Yeah, and that will break their hearts, but that is part of developing as a side. As you play more games and more experience, it only takes one person for the system to break down. When you're better trained and you get the system right, that you don't make mistakes like that.
Breaking down a lot at Richmond in those instances. Jack Riewoldt, Das, I wanted just you to analyse what's happening here with his body language at the end of the game. Had a quiet game, played on the premier backman, I think, Luke McFarlane. But do we see too much of this from Jack, or is this just what we get? I don't dislike it, as some do, but I want to get your take on his language here.
I reckon the microscope on Jack Riewoldt is almost as intense as any player in the game. He's basically at the end of the game. They've lost a close one, and he's saying to the boys, let's get off. Hey, we haven't won. No point hanging around. It was one of my pet hates is that players that after a loss want to shake hands, want to just wander around, have a look. Once the job's done, get off, get into the rooms and start recovering and reassessing. So on his playing form,
on his playing form, why is Vickery and McGuan almost being treated as equals to him? Because they're not equals to him. He's the superstar and he's the go-to man in the traditional sense.
I'm not sure anyone's suggesting they're being treated as equals. I mean, he is the star and he gets the best defender. But if they're going to go somewhere as a club, Damien Hardwick's right. You've got to have other options down there. You've got to have a more functioning forward borderline. He's won the Coleman medal twice, Dave. That's not enough for them to make the finals. They've got to build some key forwards around him, and some weeks he's not going to get as much as the footy as he would like.
I reckon they're mitigating his talents too much, Das, for what it's worth. Crows, goal kicking is going to be a real problem, isn't it? We knew Kurt Tippett going into the year was obviously not going to be there. Walker with his knee, real problems emerging. Two guys who kicked goals last year can't get games this year, Callanan and Portpleasure. And the next one on last year's list is Paddy Dangerfield. Do we throw the question up now? As much as it would rob the midfield, do we throw the question up? Is he a potential goal-kicking option for this club for what's left of 2013?
You'd like to clone him and run him out of the goal square as a small forward, but you can't take away, arguably the most damaging midfielder in the competition. He's got to play there and rest forward and do that, but he's not your saviour. I think everyone's underestimated what happens with Kurt Tippett. He had a pretty poor year last year, Kurt Tippett, when they had a sensational year. Maybe he thought he was going somewhere else, Damo. But what that did was a great fall for Tex Walker. He has sort of floundered a little bit without that support around him. So it's a big omission out of their side. Now with Walker's knee, huge dramas for Adelaide this year. I think their season's right off the rails at the moment.
Could you ever do this, what we're about to see, Das? Jack Need on the weekend against West Coast for Port Adelaide. One hand bounce, Das, at full throttle.
It's a good trick, though, isn't it? Never even thought of doing it, and not sure that anyone else has. To do it at that sort of speed as well, and it's exciting, isn't it, to see. I love watching players that have got something different. You don't see that every week, and look at the great league speed as well. Part of the reason why they're 5-0. Now, Damo, we're 5 weeks into 2013, and I want to ask you, who are you on now that you've got a little bit of a look at the season? Who do you like after 5 rounds?
What I'm loving, Das, is the openness and the refreshing openness of coaches this year. I reckon more so than other years. We've had Brad Scott almost on a weekly basis say something pretty strong. Once it was against Nathan Buckley. We've had Ross Lyon explain why Subban was subbed off just because he wasn't touching the footy. Scotty Waters having a crack at Milne, and even Damien Hardwick taking us into his bedroom, Das, as what's going on with his sex life. No, in honesty, we are honest enough now to deal with this as an industry, and good on the coaches.
I'm with you. I love the new generation of coaches who speak their mind. I'm on Port Adelaide. I'm on Koshy, and I'm on the fact that you apologised, Damo. It was very hard to hear those words come out of your mouth, but to regenerate that club, and look, they're not going to be a force. I don't think they'll make the finals this year. I think that'll.
You still think they'll miss the finals?
Yeah, I think it'll catch up with them in the second half of the year. They're a very young side. Ken Hinkley's a gun coach. I'm on him as well. Why wasn't he selected earlier when you look at the great success and his great history? So well done, Koshy. Well done, Ken Hinkley. I'm right on the Port Adelaide bandwagon.
When there's an on, there's always an off, Das, and the off for me is the spate of knee injuries to big-name players or any players going on. We've had 9 already this year. We've had Bradley on the weekend, and also Tuvey, and the unknown about Walker for some time yet. It's not good, and some of them are very innocuous incidents, aren't they?
Yeah, awful. Hate watching the replays of the knees, and it's always tragic to see someone go down. Tex Walker, the big one. I'm off the sliding rule in a big way, Damo. I think it was an overreaction. It was unnecessary. I think they could have solved it by just basically highlighting the dangerous slide. And
there's less than one a game, Das, being adjudicated. I think it's working.
It's thrown the first 5 weeks of the season into chaos from an umpiring point of view. People are now second-guessing themselves. You might only see one a week, but players now are not sure whether they can actually go head first for the ball. They've got to keep their feet. Could have solved it. Just said if you slide recklessly and you cause an injury, look out. 5-week penalty coming your way, and players correct themselves pretty easily. Got to stop changing the rules as easily as we do. Damo, great to hear you apologise. I'd like to see more of that. That's all we've got time for. Access all areas for another week. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next Monday. From us, it's bye for now.